So I'm going to give an important suggestion on one additional way to deal with disappointment and trauma. And this suggestion is a little outside the box, but super effective, okay? So one of the problems, if you can remember something and re-feel it, it essentially happened again, right? People think, like, if you can go, oh, press play, thing, and you can remember it and you feel it again. So it essentially happened again, and it will re-impact your physiology over and over and over and over, right? So my friend, I remembered that day and her brother and aspects about the day and remembered it over and over. That makes sense? So it wasn't just one time, it was thousands of times that happened. So here's a question for you. Are you made in God's image? Okay. Is God bound to or limited by time? No. Are you bound to or limited by time? Yes. Are you made in God's image? So I propose that there's a certain degree of time travel you can do with strong imagination, detail, and emotion. You following me so far? So it can be very helpful to reimagine certain events that happen to you differently so that I don't replay over. So, like for my mom never had a close relationship with her own mom. So my mom's 89. Her mom and her mom's sister both had their master's degrees. Like, you can imagine how far back that was. Super unusual. So her mom was an intellectual. She jokes. My mom says, yeah, this is how I learned how to swim. My mom says, Catherine, a body submerged in water is buoyed up by the weight of the water it displaces. So hop in. Right? You know? So her mom came to visit her one day at college, and her mom wasn't feeling well. And she says to her mom, just take a nap. So they never did anything together that day. And very soon after that, her mother and her sister were killed by a drunk driver. Her brother was driving the car. He was very seriously injured. At the funeral, the casket was closed. They said, well, she wasn't injured. She died of a heart attack. My mom's like, no, is the casket closed? And my mom decided the reason the casket was closed was because her mother did not have a nice dress to wear, even at her own funeral. How sad, right? So I was visiting her one day, and I said, like, look, you really got to change this, okay? And I gave her an example, and the example was of a middle-aged man who heard about this reframing, time traveling, whatever you want to call it. And what had happened to this gentleman is at 6 years old, he had jumped off a swing and landed funny, and it messed up his right hip, and he had 40 years worth of hip and back pain. And he decided that he would redo this day. And instead, he reimagined with strong clarity of detail and emotion that when he jumped off and landed this time, that he stuck that landing like an Olympic gold medal winning performance to get a gold medal and to beat the Russians, right? And if I say Mary Lou Retton, half of you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're too young, you've got no idea who this woman is, right? She's, well, it works better in the U.S. because she had to stick this landing and get a 10, and then she got the gold medal. And her performance also, we beat the Russians. Yeah. So it was like a yeah. So he reimagined that that's what happened. Detail and emotion stuck the landing. Boom. And all of the physical problems associated with that day, gone. So my mom, I tell her, you got to redo this day. So before I left, she said this. She goes, listen to her language. She goes, would you like to know what actually happened to me that day? What actually happened that day? I go, yeah, tell me what actually happened that day. She goes, well, what actually happened is we had a tea party in the botanical gardens down by the river. It was me, my mom, and my sister, and my stepmom, because her dad married her dead mom's sister, and she didn't want her either. And she goes, we had a butler serving us, beautiful Persian rug, fine china and silverware. And she goes, we're all dressed in these beautiful dresses, as if we were cast members of Downton Abbey. And we had a long afternoon of deep and intimate conversation and connection. And she goes, and that's the last day. So I'm good. Like a few months later, she goes, I'm working on one with my dad. I go, tell me. She goes, well, I'm taking her out to lunch, and she could tell you restaurant, color bow tie, meal, everything. She goes, over lunch, my father's asking me my opinion on some super important things because he values my opinion. She goes, I never felt my father really respected me, but he does today. So I've had clients in this situation dealing with loss. I'm like, you need to go back and have like lunch with this person, right? You know, like had a client, she's a natural practitioner. Husband died of cancer. It's just very like there's a lot of stuff. Like did he really give up? Did she do the right? It was like you need to have lunch. You can have an angel come and deliver him and say you got 60 minutes. Like have a conversation. What conversation would you have? Just to refix that. Anyways,
is that the neuroplasticity where you reframe your brain?
Sure. And you are spirit, soul, and body. Like, how much are you actually time traveling? How much is it? Are you rewiring physiology, and emotions? Like, this all works together.
A few weeks ago, my partner was a horse whisperer, and we both do kinesiology, and I taught him some really good timeline kinesiology stuff, and we kind of got him through a lot of childhood stuff with it. And the other day, and he's like, you know what? You need to do that thing you taught me. And I said, well, if we're doing that, you're going to talk me through it. We went back and he was muscle testing. We're going to go back to that evening we went down to the funeral directors and the coroner. And he said, you came outside, and I was with their godmother. We all sat down quite peaceful. It was quite an experience, when it's happened, but then you can't see them because the coroner's got them. And then he said, I want you just to tell yourself that 16 months down, we've got engaged, we've sold the property, which we sold 2 weeks ago, and we've moved to 50 acres, totally off the grid, and that you're okay, you're functioning, you're working, training, teaching, and things, and then I can almost feel like my brain goes, yeah, and it's just been like another kind of turning point from there. And it's that thing of those mirror neurons and everything, does my brain really know that version of myself in my timeline there went from living on top of the world, felt like I had everything, to it's quite an experience, everything totally falling apart, but then to go within all that concept of time, everything is actually visits and just goes, Mum, it's all love. Just all love.
Yeah. Here's a great example. Is like we talk about. It's like if you could time travel back to a certain situation in your life with what you know now, and you put your arms around this version of yourself, and could you give yourself some really good advice?
Yeah.
Right? But it also goes this way. If you imagine this, like you're pulling up to your house, and in the driveway is like your dream car. If you're in a car, you're like, it's the car, the same color, it's awesome. And you walk into your house and into your kitchen, and sitting at your kitchen table is future you. By the way, you look amazing, right? Healthy, fit, oozing abundance and success. And you're like, wow, this person is awesome. And future you looks at you and goes, thank you so much. I love you so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you. And you're like, me? Thank me? And future you goes, you created this. You're like, I did. You're like, mm-hmm. And you're like, do you have any suggestions for me on how to get there? And you're just like, have a seat. I got some good insight for you. And you're like, that will be awesome. Just whatever, save me some time here. So, anyways.
So I can understand the concept about creating a vision for future you, but going back and recreating so I think the key in my question is going to be the word recreating the past, but how is that not lying?
So you think your version of reality is 100% accurate?
And I already thought I'm going to have to be brave to say this. Because he's going to nail me, but yeah, probably, yeah.
My version of reality is
accurate.
accurate.
Not lying. If I go back and reimagine something that happened in the past and it happened X, Y, Z, and I'm going to imagine it now to be ABC.
Yeah.
Isn't that
So I knew, has God ever been disappointed in you?
That's too big a question for me today, Stephen.
Yes or no? You put yourself on the spot. Here we go.
I have to say no because that's the truth, isn't it?
You know, but your brain is going, yeah, but we have documentation here.
Yeah. Here's all the evidence.
Here's all the evidence. You know,
Yeah.
I knew of someone that had this experience of going to heaven, and everything does is all very interesting. In fact, one of the super cool things had like this heavenly YouTube channel where you can play anything of any events ever in recorded history. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And you're like playing King David's life. I'm like, oh, and they're like, there's some stuff missing here. No Bathsheba, no Uriah the Hittite. Boom, gone. And they were like, silly me. I asked the question. I was like, why is there something missing here? And I don't know if it was an angel or whatever, rebuked them very strong and said, we don't record failure in heaven.
Wow.
Right. So, but back to your version of reality, right? I had this experience which freaked me out. I was in a classroom training, hotel classroom training, rows of people, right? Sit down. It was summer in Austin. A young woman came in and sat in the row in front of me, about 3 seats to my right. I just noticed her, very pretty lady, short, dark haircut, like a spaghetti, like dress with spaghetti straps on it. And I glanced at her, but what I did notice very clearly is that she had like a gray surgery scar running down her back, right? And I understand because that's really I think like she had a whole spine fused, what kind of surgery she's had, how much pain is she in. You gotta think about all these things, right? Jeez. And I look back about 45 minutes later, I happened to glance back and guess what? Wasn't there, she didn't have a scar. My brain had made a shortcut. I promise you one thing, I would have perjured myself in court over that. Lawyer's like, under oath, tell us about the woman. You're like, well, Your Honor, she had like a surgery scar and she had dark hair and this and that. And like, if you put a lineup of people like facing the other way, I would pick her out, like no issues. None of it was true. So God, so I'll answer this, then we'll go to the training.
All
We
right.
can talk about this later.
Okay.
The Bible says, have the God kind of faith.
Yeah.
Who calls those things which aren't
Mm-hmm.
as though they were.
For the future.
No, they can't. They already exist outside of time.
Yeah.
Right. It's called faith.
Yeah.
I'm declaring,
Yeah.
seeing, believing this is how my mom is alive. Why? Because she had terminal cancer. She has, where can I connect my faith? Now, she didn't believe that she could connect it to, like, I'm cancer free. Like, the BS alarm would go off, like, too loud. So she goes, what could I believe? She goes, I could believe, see, visualize, accept as an accomplished fact that 2 cancer cells are now currently getting better.
Mm.
But that's not true.
It's one perspective, isn't it?
Right.
You know, it's
It's-
like when you're going back, lady around the corner. When you're going back, you're giving your brain a different perspective. And one of the perspectives is like what you said, you know, what's the benefit of what happened?
Yeah,
know?
so that lady, okay, where Tony Robbins says, what's the hidden gift? But if she was to go back and recreate that event and imagine
She
that
could
didn't,
empower-
that
she
imagine
came
that
in an
didn't
empowered
happen
way,
to
so-
her, isn't that lying? That's
That's
the
what
bit,
the point
that's
is
where I'm,
going.
that's a bit,
I'll give
that's
you,
I'm stuck
I'll give
on
you
that.
one more
Wait,
example, then we're gonna
Yeah.
leave it.
Yeah.
So
So
you said again now, she could imagine.
I had a client of mine in Australia. Her entrance into life was not so good. Her parents had a lot of conflict in their relationship. They definitely did not want to be pregnant. Her dad for sure didn't want a girl, he wanted a boy. Okay. And it was a super traumatic C-section. And I told her, I go, you really need to change this, right? And she took it to heart. She video recorded it, sent it to me. It was so powerful. On the video, she's like, here's what actually happened today. She goes, angels were in attendance at my birth, right? It was a beautiful vaginal birth. Like, and my father, there's my father. They're waiting, going, it's my baby girl. He goes, and that's the day. Anyway, so let's go to recruit.
Sharing the record part is what's really important. That's one of the most painful aspects of this. Maybe
Well, so the Barney story, right? I had a client, she had problems in her marriage. But not like he's cheating on her, like they get married, he's like just emotionally absent. Right? She prayed this, nothing was changing in her marriage, right? And she's super successful network marketer. She was traveling on business and went out for drinks with one of her business partners. And that night in the bar, there was a man, the way he looked and the way he treated her, everything in her entire being was like, this would actually heal my heart and make me happy. This guy, this relationship, right? Now, the interesting thing is that very night, her husband at home has a dream. And in the dream, God's like, the way you've treated your wife has made her vulnerable to this. And she's very beautiful, successful, and he's an idiot, right? Well, when she comes home, he's like a changed man. He's like, oh, it's like, so he's changed. But she goes, I acknowledge he's changed, but I can't forget that event, which happened, right? And this did happen, right? And I told her about, I go, you're reimagining somebody. And sometimes what you need to do is just make it weird so it won't play anymore.
Right.
And she texted me later today. She goes, solved it. She goes, I reimagined that guy dressed like Barney, the purple children's dinosaur. She goes, I tell you one thing, Barney's not sexy. My brain goes, like it won't, like the record won't play anymore, right? So there's some record that plays for you. If that makes sense. But that's what happened. But that's what happened. But that's what happened. But that's what happened. But that's what happened, right? Yeah. You have to like scratch it, right? Mm-hmm. I did this. I'll give one other example. I had a client of mine. She's, you know, she would have a session with her. She was this most happy, positive person. One day she comes in a session. She's like, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? She goes, my boss. I go, okay, what happened? She goes, he gave me a bad performance review. I'm like, yeah. She goes, number one, she goes, it's not true. She goes, I do an amazing job at my job. She goes, number two, he's actually never even around ever. He hasn't the faintest foundation to give me any performance review at all, let alone tell me I'm doing a bad job. It's ridiculous, right? I'm like, we'll fix it immediately. She goes, really? I go, yeah, watch this. I go, in your imagination, you're back in the office. She goes, sitting across the desk from me. Yep. He was wearing a coat and tie. She's like, oh yeah. And he's giving you a bad performance review, and you're getting more and more upset. And I go, he's done. And he stands up to let you out of the office. But when he stands up to let you out of the office, you realize, he's not wearing any pants. He's wearing like white boxers with pink bunny rabbits on it. She starts giggling. And I go, I mean, you realize he left the house today not knowing he's not wearing pants, right? Likely going to be checked into an institution this afternoon. She's laughing. I go, yeah, so tell me, what do you think about the review? She's like,
right. So it's not changing the event, it's the perception of the event.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
or you can take that event, right? Take the event, cool, change the context, put it in the throne room of heaven.
Yeah.
This person is still doing this to you. Go, and there's God going, like, you're the best, amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have to take one opinion.
Yeah, so you're not lying about the factual event. You're recreating what it represents, your perception, how God sees it, or you're bringing in how God sees it.
Yeah,
So
it
you're-
doesn't matter anymore, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
It doesn't matter because it's your memory. So it's like you can say the memories only affect you, like it's how you remember them. It's like your soul and your spirit will remember or whatever you tell yourself.
You'd say it's just more setting yourself free from torment, to make yourself torment. Beings, it's a separate.
We'll get to the recruiting part. So if you want to press recording, oh, it is. Okay. So one thing, as we talk about this, I want you to understand a couple things. I grew up in Southeast Florida. Loved going to the beach. And I never surfed, but I did lots of body surfing, right? The wave comes in, you swim in the wave, right? And you practice that quite a bit and you get better at it. And part of it is to understand the potential of a wave and what to do as the wave is there, right? And a lot of it had to do with what level of intensity you did at the right time to catch the wave. Does that make sense? Right? It's like, oh, here's the wave. And I'm like, oh no, what? It passed me by. Like, that makes sense? I'm paddling. That makes sense? I paddled. Yeah, no, that doesn't cut it. It's like when it gets there, you're like, oh, I caught it. All of a sudden, I'm going, it looks effortless. That makes sense? I'm like, wow, this is fun. You go and go and go. That was amazing. Let's do it again, right? But it's the sense of like, what intensity are you going to have now, right? Like, newsflash, pre-launch doesn't happen multiple times. It happens for the next 6 months. Like, you won't, how about this? Would you like to get paid for the next decade for the work you do in the next 6 months? Yeah. This level of effort doesn't pay in a life-changing way. This level of effort done wholeheartedly does pay. Wholeheartedly, what is it? It's like, I let go of what other people think, of what institutions, everything. I just let go of it. I just go for it. Right? So that's why, that's the attitude and intensity to come into recruiting. Okay. And here's an example. Often people, for example, they care very much about their relationships with other people, and doing this kind of business can be fraught with, but what are people going to think of me? Does that make sense? It's like, right. And people who think that way, typically what you're doing is you think you're recruiting for your benefit. Like, I'm talking to this person about Banify for my benefit to build my business. Does that make sense? Right? When that's a very ineffective way to do it. If instead my intention is, there's a phrase, it's called the sin of the desert. Anyone ever heard of this? The sin of the desert. The sin of the desert is this. It's like, if I know where the water is, opportunity to build a business, opportunity to get better health-wise. If I know where the water is and I don't tell you, I'm not forcing you. I'm not robbing you of the ability to make your own decision though. See? I'm going to share it with you for your benefit because I'm a nice guy. Whatever you do with it, that's up to you. See? And that's whatever you will do in recruiting, you have to come at it from that perspective. Okay? For example, guess how many people give me a hard time about doing network marketing? That means 0. Right? It's like,
yeah.
You know, no one ever accuses me of you're just trying to make money. I'm like, it's like, I do not have that energy. It's not my fear at all. And I'm not attached to whether someone says yes or no. I know what I have. I know the opportunity. I care about you. So I'm going to, in a passionate and effective way, give you the ability to make your own decision. Right? Whether you do something with that or not. Sometimes it's sad for me that you don't. Right? Like we were shopping in Melbourne and we meet this woman and she clearly has some health issues and she's sad and different things like this. And we talk about traveling. She's like, I'll be old before I have any money to ever leave the country. And we kind of briefly hint at,
Brilliant.
we briefly hint at and tell her something and like, we have something. Would you like us to give you some information? She said, no. Sad for me, right? And that's like, I'm okay with that I'm going to have that experience, but to a certain degree, I would have been surprised if she had taken me up on it because I didn't get that vibe that she's like looking for something. Does that make sense? But I had to do the compassionate thing and give it to her, right? Like, well, we gave you the option, okay? That's the right thing to do. You didn't take it, that's whatever. That makes sense.
That's what happens when you're stuck in this and not open to this.
Exactly. So before I go over this, someone tell me the 4 steps to flow. Awesome. Cool. So these are the 5 questions for recruiting, right? And here's what I mean. There are many different ways of recruiting. You can recruit through social media. You can recruit picking up the phone, calling somebody. You may be recruiting at a party with a bunch of people you never met before, right? And in each one of those, if your prospect, the person you're talking to, can answer these 5 questions, yes, 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 they're much more likely to say yes to doing the business with you and not just being a customer. Follow me? So it took me a long time to learn this. I was with a company called Manitech for years, and we're super technical. We educate someone into submission because we have the research. And we do a good job. And I remember one person, it was in Aspen in my parents' living room, and these people are sitting on the couch. I forget who they were. And the gentleman asked me a question. He goes, so, what did you study in college? What was he saying? He goes, what you're doing is rather impressive. You must have had some sort of formal degree to be able to present the information you just presented to me in that manner. Follow me? And finally that day, I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this really wrong. I wish I could tell you that everything shifted that day, but it did not, right?
More impressive, less signups and growth.
Yeah. So we had a phrase in Manitech, we called it high tech, low check, right? Like, another thing to understand is like, use a nice, you do landscaping, gardening, everything. Water's important for plants, right? Right. So I would think then using a fire hose would be the best way to do it. No? It's more water, right? We're going to convince the plants to hydrate. Yeah, that does not work. It's like fire hoses are for crowd control, not for helping people. Okay, don't crowd control your business. So, I had an upline in another business. Carl was his name, and Carl's super smart guy. He had like a degree in physics and also an MBA. Been very successful as a salesperson in insurance. Was also really, really good network marketer and very good recruiter. And if you didn't know about Carl's background, you would think, oh, Carl's just kind of a simple old grandpa guy, country boy from Louisiana. He's super friendly. You think Carl's super smart? I'm like, no, I don't get that impression. Well, because Carl's good at recruiting. Does that make sense? Right? So, the first question here. You're interacting with somebody. First thing they say is, can I do what you are doing? Can I do what you're doing? Okay. So, the more impressive you are in how you're sharing the information and what you're saying and how you're explaining the technology, right? The less likely someone is to say, yes, I could do what you're doing. Okay? Right. So simple. If they join your business and at the same time they're like, oh, like Serge, he's a nice guy, not super bright. And I'm thinking that if that dude could do this business, we're gonna kill it. And what I don't know is Serge is a deliberately recruiting freaking genius. Does that make sense? Right? I'll give you a great example because my mom was a great recruiter. And one day she's in Carbondale, Colorado, and she's wanting new carpet for us, and she goes into a carpeting store, and she's talking to Linda, and she says to Linda, she goes, yeah, do all the toxic fumes of the carpet ever bother you? And Linda's like, how they do, because I've gained 70 pounds working here, all the toxicity. And Linda goes, oh, she goes, have you ever heard of glyconutrients? Linda goes, no. Linda goes, have you ever heard of Manatech? Linda goes, no. My mom goes, oh my, we should have dinner sometime, talk about it. Linda says, is it network marketing? My mom goes, well, yes, it is. How do you feel about that? Linda's like, I'm looking for something. My mom goes, great, have dinner. My mom did not fire hose her with, well, this, and it's like, oh, it's a curcumin, it's biomass technology, and it's 18,000%, and in Germany, and blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? None of that, right? She was like, oh, come on over, we'll have dinner. So when they came over, they had dinner. They talked about everything but Manatech the entire dinner. At the end of the dinner, Linda's finally like, oh my God, like tell me about it for goodness sakes, right? Linda put 700 people in my business, right? Often, people in my mom's business, they would call me up, they're like, so I have a question for you, because your mom, she doesn't really seem to know anything about this. And I'm like, my mother is playing you like a fiddle, okay? Like, she is like freaking good recruiter. So the question is, no one ever said, oh, I can't do what Kathy's doing. You understand? Right? So some phrases to understand with this. If your lips are moving, your finger should be pointing. Your lips are moving, your finger should be pointing. Oh, okay, you look at this video, look at this brochure, go to this group, right? Because I don't want to be a tool, I want to use the tool, right? Don't be the tool, use the tool. Third party, because I don't ever want someone to say, well, I can't, what you just explained, that sounds like it's impressive, but I think it would take me a while to figure that out. Right? It's like, for example, if I'm at a party with somebody and they ask me, oh, Steve, so what is it that you do? I might go, I will show you. Take a picture. You're like, whoa, another picture. You're like, holy crap, what is that? Another picture. I'm like, oh, it's like this turmeric product with a special delivery system makes it 18,000% more available. So you're just like, well, how can I get information? Or what is it? I'm like, okay, dude, I'm not very good at explaining it. What's your phone number? I'll text you a 5-minute video. You can watch it. That's it. There's like pictures, lots of pictures of feet. Yeah, testimony pictures. You throw like 3-day picture, crazy inflammation to no inflammation, and people are like, whoa, stop. What is that? Right? Like, do you know how to show a picture to someone on your phone? Like you're looking at that going.
What sort of pictures you meant though, whether you were like the graphs and the.
Yeah. It's like before and after pictures, right? So that's not impressive at all. So can I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, do I have the time? So of the 250 entrepreneurs I've personally recruited, and I've actually, if someone's in a foreign country, often I'll like simply, my wife doesn't agree with me doing this, but I'll just give them away to somebody else. Does that make sense? Like, oh, I'll just connect you with the leader in your country. You can sign them up, right? So a lot of people. The amount of conversations I've had to recruit somebody, I've probably had fewer minutes actually one-on-one phone time with those 200 people than most of you have spent recruiting half the people on your team. Right? Oh, want some information? Copy, paste it, send it. Oh, you have a question for me? Copy, paste another video. Oh, another question? Hold on, let me put you in a group chat with somebody else. See? So nothing I do is impressive. Nothing I do takes much time. Here's one. You want to observe your business and you want to ask yourself, what I'm doing right now when I'm small, could I actually scale this up and do the exact same thing when I'm big?
Yeah.
Right? If you can't say yes, then you'll never be big because you can't scale it. Oh yeah, I spent like 45 minutes with them on the phone talking about different things and blah 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 blah. Cool. Yeah, awesome. How about when you have 3,000 people on your team? No. You can't, like, yeah. You would want to like put a gun to your head because your business is like trying to rob you of all your peace and joy, So that's one thing. Always thinking, okay, does this scale? Does this scale? Does this scale? Right? And if I think like that too, what I'm showing everyone is this doesn't require a lot of time. Okay, this is one reason why if someone says to you, oh, I just don't have the time to do the business. Observe what you're doing and see if you've given them the impression that it takes a lot of time. Maybe you haven't, maybe they just have the wrong concept, right? And in another business I have, the most successful people in that business were homeschooling moms of like 5 to 7 children. Like my top leader, we go to her house. Her house was chaos all the time. A huge advantage to her. You know why? If you're actually super busy, it can be a huge advantage to your business because it forces you to do the system because you don't have time to do it any other way, right? For example, number 3, would I get help? Right? You need to show people that you would get help, not just tell them, right? My friend Noelle, homeschooling mom of 5, crazy business, super successful. She goes, one day the light bulb went off for me. Why? Because I'm on my phone with my prospect connecting to my upline to do a 3-way call, have the phone on mute, and I'm scrubbing toilets. So all those homeschooling moms, they're crazy busy. You know what they did? They followed the system. They used the tools like they had to. So that everyone looks at them and goes, oh my God, life is insane. You're doing how in this business? Okay, if you could do it, I don't know exactly how, but if you could do it, I for sure could do it. Because my life is not like your life. Does that make sense? Oh yeah. Right. So can I do it? Do I have the time? Would I get help? This, our world has changed. It used to be that we always just do 3-way calls, and you can still do 3-way calls, right? A couple suggestions on 3-way calls. Like if you were thinking about doing the business, right, and we're in a room full of people, right, I would go, oh, hold on a second. Sergio and Rebecca here. Come with, I'm going to introduce you. You think about doing the business. Clearly you want to meet them, right? I'm not even going to ask. That's obvious, right? So I'm not going to go, oh, do you want to meet them? That'd be, well, of course, right? So in terms of 3-way calls are very effective. And one aspect of it is I would never ask someone, would you like to do a 3-way call with my upline? Like, what's expected? That sounds a little weird. No, right? Instead, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, on my phone, I might have a group text which has on it the multiple people I might do 3-way call with, right? So maybe search Rebecca, another person in my upline, maybe someone in my cross line from me who I'm buddies with, right? Multiple people, and I'll text all of them all at once. 3-way call, question mark, right? So I'm talking to you, all of a sudden, Rebecca messaging me back, yes. I'm like, hey, hold on a second. My business partner, Rebecca, is available. She has an amazing story I want you to hear. 1 second. Click. Boom. Oh, I merged them. Hey, Rebecca, this is my friend Bob, right? Bob's checking out the business, but Bob, I wanted to hear Rebecca's story. It's super amazing. And, if any questions come up, she can help you. I'm going to just mute myself. Let them chat. Boom, done. I would say, especially previously when this is more common for people to do, the person who, 100% of the time, the person who asks for the most help with business building type things, not like 3-week, situations, not like, oh, ask me a question that's in a document that I can message you. Does that make sense? Like, no. Can you talk to this prospect for me? Can you answer this, right? The amount of help they're asking is always in direct proportion to the potential of their success of their business. Because I have to show them, by the way, you get help. You're not like on your own. You're like, oh, if I needed help, someone would come and help me. Cool. Right? It's like, here's a good example. Serge, we're good friends and you like me. You do realize I'm a bit of a lazy idiot, but I'm a nice guy and we hang out, right? And one day, I'm like, we're having coffee. I'm like, Serge, I just started a new business. I just put all my life savings into it. And you're like, do you know anything about that kind of business? I'm like, no, I don't know anything about it. What has he done now? That makes sense. You're like, this is bad. And then I go, with my new best friend and business partner, Sir Richard Branson. You know that guy? We actually randomly met on the golf course a couple of years ago. We became super good friends. We're doing it together. Then you're like, oh, okay. So, Steve, if you need help, be sure to ask. Right? So a lot of you will do business and you'll struggle, but you never ask for help because you're like, oh, I know they're busy. Right? Like, it's shocking how many times people go, oh, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, I'm actually not that busy. And I don't have really that good of psychic abilities. Like, oh, I think Susie needs help. I should call her. I can't do that. Like, if you need help, I want you to help you, but you got to ask for it, right? So, can I do it? Do we have time? Would I get help? Would I do what you're doing to me, to my friends and family? Yes.
Did you connect the dots that when you introduce someone who's on your team, when you guys introduce someone to Rebecca, they don't see you as, oh, are they successful or not? They understand that you're partnering with someone. And so that's what happens is you get to lean on her credibility. You get to lean on Steve's credibility until you have your own credibility. And even now, Steve uses a 3-way call or a 3-way messaging the situation.
Absolutely.
As much as possible. So that's the whole missing piece, I think, of the puzzle.
Like, Cheryl knows me, I'm like her plumber, right? Great plumber, nice guy, whatever, not like business genius, right? But you'd like me and trust me, like you know me for 15 years, right? When I go, oh, I want you to meet my friend Rebecca. She's grew the business the fastest in the whole planet. She's amazing, right now. She is with me, so she inherits the trust you have for me, right? It's like gifted to her because of the interaction.
Yeah.
But you view her, because I introduced her as someone, as an expert. So anything she says will carry more weight.
Yeah.
So constantly you'll have people like, oh my God, I can't believe that you told Bob that. I've told him that 5 times. And when you told him that, he's like, I've never heard it before. And he actually listened to you. I'm like, I don't understand. Yeah. There's a 3-way call. Or tons of times people are like, okay, I'm going to put you on the friend of my cousin Rob. He doesn't have any money. So you can do that cousin pack. You can do 250 pack. But he's not really interested in business. I'm like, okay, whatever. 30 minutes later, Rob's like, here's my credit card. I'm going to do the big pack. I'm super excited about the business. And the prospect's like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I'm like, well, it's like the power of the 3-way call, right? I'll give you an example. I knew a guy, he was living in a friend's basement, recently divorced, just had his car repossessed, $50,000 in credit card debt, not a very personable person, had done like 40 different network marketing companies and failed at them. And had to hassle his mom to borrow her credit card to put $1,000 on it to sign up for the business, right? But his upline had recruited 22 people in a cold market that month and sold every single one of them. I'll do as many 3-way calls for you as you want. Told that to all 22 people. Only 3 of those people did any, and only this guy, his name was Ray Bauer. Only Ray Bauer did very many, and Ray did 137 3-way calls in 1 month. And he went on to make over $100,000. So here's the thing. Good news. If you lack anything in this business, skill sets, confidence, expertise, whatever, good news, borrow it. By some sort of 3-way call. I just have confidence about this. And, okay, well, someone who's making a boatload of money. Solved. You understand? You don't have confidence in the business or that much in the product or this. It's like, no problem, just borrow it from somebody else until you get your own. Any other questions on that? Yeah, so here, what I do, what you're doing to me, my friends and family, the easier that I am to say no to, the more likely someone will say yes. I'll repeat that again. The easier I am to say no to, the more likely you'll say yes. It creates a comfortable environment. Okay. So, if if I'm meet Serge at a party and we're talking, so I'm going to give you a couple examples. This one is like, how do you interact with somebody in a cold market environment? You like a bunch of people, you're an Uber driver, this, that, whatever. So the first thing is genuinely care about people. Like, again, I'm looking to tell someone about Vitify for their benefit. I'm good, but I'm a nice guy, so I'm not going to withhold this information from you. That makes sense, right? So I genuinely care, but I'm also curious. I'm like, Serge, hey, how are you doing? Where are you from? How are you doing that? How do you like that? Like, I'm having a lot of questions for him. Does that make sense? And genuinely curious. Now, what I'm hoping that he'll do for the sake of this interaction is ask for him to do the polite thing and go, oh, and what do you do, Steve? Right? I'm like, oh, it might be something. I might show him pictures, or I might just say, oh, yeah, so do you know what turmeric is? He's like, oh, yeah. He goes, well, everybody on the planet is either taking or knows they should be taking, but what they don't realize is actually very poor absorption. And I found a product that has a German technology that makes it 18,000% more bioavailable. Results are insane, like better sleep, more energy, better mental clarity, less pain. That's just awesome. The results freak me out. Anyways, but how long have you been doing your business? Right? A little bit of information, drop it. Why? Because I want to come back and go, yeah. Well, wait a second. Tell me more about your product, right? If I do this right, when I give him information about Vitify, he's going to thank me because I took time out of my day and was compassionate and gave him the information that he specifically asked for, which was very nice of me to do. See the difference? Versus like, oh, let me tell you about it. And this, you interested in business? I don't know if you know this, but whatever you chase, it will typically run away from you. Right? It's like, anyone here into horses? You're into horses. So let me ask you a question. Got a horse in the field. I got the tack, everything, and I'm like, I'm gonna ride this horse, and I'm like, how's that gonna go for me?
Yeah, the horse is gonna feel your.
I'm like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
But if I go for a stroll in the field, I'm like, minding my own business. I'm not gonna carry my pocket, but you know,
Always helps.
and the horse is like, oh, I'm curious. What are you doing here? You know, it's like, oh, see, very different. That makes sense.
And providing you're not doing that over top of the fear, because otherwise they'll know you.
Yeah.
That's that other work we were earlier.
It's like,
Yeah,
I'm boldly confident,
yeah,
have the right energy. You know,
and feel, you know, horses have a huge heart connection.
yeah, horses are.
Oh, gotcha.
So understand. So I want him to come towards me. Does that make sense? Right? Because oh, by the way, personally, I never carry business cards. Never do that. Why? Serger's like, oh, you have a business card? No, I do not. Tell you what. What's your cell phone number? I'll just text you a link. Now I have his contact information. Okay, I can follow up with him. I may ask him, oh, by the way, of everything I just mentioned, what caught your attention? I have his information. I know what his pain point is or what his actual. He's like, oh, I'm looking for business, or oh man, I don't sleep well, or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. See? So again, a slightly different situation. And here's a big one. And of the training, this one I'm about to share with you, people are going, that was the most helpful thing, right?
One thing I would just say is when you're asking someone about themselves and you're listening to what they're saying, not just waiting for your jump in and say what you do. But when you ask people about themselves and listening, if they don't ask you about yourself, we don't ever chase them.
Very true. I'll give them benefit of the doubt, and I might go, mention that I have a business, and then drop it. Like, for example, in the Uber, you know, we recruited got all our Uber drivers interested, not 100%, but a few. We mentioned, oh, we're in town on business. We're opening a new business in this country. Drop it. Oh, what is it? Oh, not like, oh, we're starting a new business. Have you heard of turmeric? And it's really cool. It's a network marketing business. Are you looking for business? You're like, it's crazy people in my car. So what I want to do is I want to go over a script on how to contact people. Now, here's the thing is that everyone in this room, you have people you know who are super competent, successful people who you have not contacted about Beautify because you don't really know them that well, or you haven't talked to them in a while, and you're not sure if they would be interested, and you can't conceive of how you would contact them and it wouldn't be weird. Everybody say, right? First of all, let me tell you a story. There was a guy named Stuart Briscoe I met. So I'm in this network marketing company with Carl. Remember Carl? And we're in Louisiana, and we're staying at Stuart Briscoe's house. And Carl says this to me. He goes, Stuart is worth $50 million. I'm like, $50 million? Now, seriously, how many people who are worth $50 million are like, oh, I'm looking for a network marketing opportunity? I mean, like, seriously, who thinks he would be like, no, right? They're not interested in that. But Stuart's in the business. So I asked Stuart, I'm like, hey, man, tell me, why would you be interested in doing a network marketing business? And Stuart looked at me like I was a business idiot. And he's like, low investment, no overhead, no employees, great tax benefits, high upside income potential. He's like, what's not to like about this business? I'm like,
Don't prejudge.
Don't prejudge. You know, successful people who make money, you know what they really like? They like to make money, right? That makes sense. It's like, I know decent amount of people who made 70, 80, 100,000, like $180,000 a month. I know a guy who made over $1 million a month in network marketing. Right. So the question is, if Serge is on my, like, Serge and I, like, kind of really like this guy. We used to be great buddies, hang out together. We had tons of fun. He's super sharp, dude. I would love to have him on my team. I haven't talked to him in like 2 years though. No contact whatsoever. There's, like, just be weird to call him out of the blue. I don't want to call him up and talk to him about this. And he's like, oh, and he says something, I'm just trying to sell him on business. And that's just out of integrity. You know what I mean? But it's disingenuous. But I call Serge, and this is our conversation. Ring, ring. Serge, it's Steve Keller, man. How are you?
Oh, Steve, been a long time.
I know, it's been forever. Hey, man, look, I would totally love to catch up with you. It's been forever. But honestly, I'm calling for a specific reason. Now, if I don't do that and I just mindless small talks are just like, okay, cool, just calling about something. Oh, should we get to it? I'm kind of busy. That makes sense? Like, it's just, that'd be weird, right? I'm like, dude, I love you, man. You know I love you. I would love to catch up with you. Today, I'm actually calling for a specific reason. He's like, okay, what? I'm like, I recently started my own business. And one of the things that I like most about this business is I actually get to choose who I do business and life with, right? Because often, you know, in work, you work with a bunch of people and you spend your whole life with them, but you didn't actually even like these people or get to choose them. That makes sense? You're like, you hope you like your work buddies, but sometimes it's weird. I mean, I'm not going to go into all that, but that's kind of the understanding, right? Like, so one of the things I like best about the business is I actually get to choose who I go to business with. And when I thought about who I'd love to do business with, I thought about you. We have tons of fun together. You have incredible integrity, you have incredible leadership skills, and you're a very successful guy. And look, I don't know if this would be anything you'd be interested in, but I thought at least you might like to check it out. Or just like, cool, what is it? Well, it's an interesting technology. It has to do with turmeric and curcumin, which most of the world knows about. Half the world's taking it. The other half knows they should. But what they don't know is it has super low bioavailability. And we actually have access to a technology from Germany that increases the bioavailability 18,000%. People are getting freaky life-changing results. And we're just opening this market. I'm like, okay, interesting. Look, I don't want to screw up the explanation though. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you a short video. Okay. I'll give you access to a testimonial group. You can see what's actually doing for people. And but here's the deal, Serge, and I want to be super clear on this. Before I send this information to you, I want you to know that our friendship and relationship is way more important than any product or business. Okay. So if you look at this information and you're not interested, the faster you can tell me, the better. Okay, I don't ever want you to look at my phone number on caller ID and go, oh my God, what do you want now? That makes sense? Cool. So I'm going to send this to you. I'll just follow up with you tomorrow. You can tell me what you think. And maybe, again, love to catch up with you. I'm super bummed that we haven't gotten in touch the last couple of years. That's it, right? Now, if he's not interested, he's not going to go, man, you're such a jerk for calling me. And he's going to be like, hey, man, it's actually not a good fit for me right now. Not timing, not something I'd be interested in. But thank you for calling me. See? Why? Because the conversation I had honored our friendship and relationship and made a very comfortable space for him to say no. Right? And that's it. So even if he says no to me, I'm not hesitating picking the phone back up and calling Rebecca. Does that make sense? Because this wasn't a painful experience for me. I'm like, okay, well, I can conceive how I could talk to a bunch of people without it being miserable. Okay. Because, you know, a lot of times people train you in network marketing, you have to increase your personal development so you will go through hell to do your business. It's like, people are not going to do that, right? We have to make it in the easier way that's not so painful to get there, right? Any questions on that?
So you would do that only in a phone call, not on a messenger?
here's the deal. These days, you may have to do it on Messenger. One of the things to keep in mind, though, is the reason a phone call or a voice message is helpful is because I want him to hear the music in my voice.
So if you head to Messenger, you do a voice message.
I might do something like that. Yeah, I want him to hear the music in my voice. I had an upline in another company, Steve Lee. He came to the U.S., no English, no money. And now he actually quite successful, but he still has, his English still sucks. People would join, he'd call somebody up. He'd be super excited and they'd be like, Steve, I don't understand what you're saying, but I'm interested. It's like passion, right? You know? It's like, I'm like, I know you'd be interested, and I mean, really have to talk to somebody about the business, but I'm afraid you're gonna say no. It's gonna be weird. It's like, yeah, well, right. So I'll tell you, in context of this, one thing to understand, for good or bad, this is sometimes not super comfortable, but your business is a mirror to you, right? Oh, this psyche, but this keeps on coming up. Everyone, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, that's you, not everyone. Right? Here's an example. I was in San Francisco, mid-90s, before the internet was really took off, and I was doing a meeting. The main doctor for the company was going to come into town. He was going to do a meeting, and so people, and I was putting on, some people were calling me to get information about it, okay? And I was asking people about their business, and be like, hey, how's the business going? I'm curious, like, what result, everything. And this one woman, I'm talking to her on the phone, and she goes, the product is amazing. But man, everyone gives me a hard time about the price. And I'm like, we're selling the same product in the same market, and I'm not getting any pushbacks on the price. So this is very curious to me. I'm like, what are you charging? So I asked her, what are you charging for the product? Because I'm confused. She was charging a little bit less than I was. And I'm like, yeah, if you decide that the product's worth every single penny, no one will give you any appreciate that. And at the meeting, she introduced herself, and she's like, I'm the lady, we had this conversation. I'm like, yeah. She goes, I changed me, and I decided the product was worth every penny. And now no one gives me an issue about the price.
And I would just interject that if you will feed on the testimonials and let that kind of affect the music in your voice, think about who might be interested in that testimonial or just any testimonial, but just let that be the place you operate from. You know, more of an open place.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So for me, I'm making great money. I'm not very motivated by money. But your business 100% has to run on passion and excitement. But for me, so what I do is like, the more stories, does that make sense? Like interview people. Oh my God, this like, so for me, that's what has to build my excitement level up. Like I tell everybody, this is amazing. Like, you got to hear this story. And wait, we'll get some other people on this. That'll be super fun, right? So that my excitement level has to be very high, and that conveys much better through my voice or a video than texting. Okay. So.
And then talk about the 6 exposures in the recent group.
Yeah. So one thing to understand is like, typically in sales, it can take multiple exposures for someone to say yes. Okay. And for me personally, I'm not very good at follow-up. That would even be an exaggeration. I don't follow up anybody ever. You should. Don't do what I do. Do what I tell you to do. So this is my workaround. I put hundreds of people in the testimonial group.
Yeah.
So we say, add them, invite them, tag them. Right? Add, invite, tag. So I'm going to add you to the group. I'm going to invite you to it, and hopefully you'll accept it. And then I'm going to take you, and I'm going to find a testimonial that I think you might like, and I'm going to tag you in it. I need you to get in the group. All the stuff that want to distract you on the internet and Facebook. I need you to go disruptive wellness. Like, ooh, wow, that's a good story. Ooh, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And then maybe tomorrow Facebook is like, hey, Samara, Susie posted a new testimonial on disruptive wellness. You should check it out. You're like, Like, I will. Oh my God. And pretty soon I'm like, take my credit card. Like I'm ready. So you have random people all of a sudden, like, oh, I want to sign up. You're like, oh, where do you get? Oh, that's right. I sent you some information to add you to the group a while back. But it's been trickling over a period of time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And like, so the group is doing the follow up for me. After thing, after thing, after thing, after thing, after thing, after thing. And then finally they're like, oh my God, like, oh, my aunt, I need to tell her about it. Oh my this, and this. And like, oh my God, this is changing the world. Like, I need to participate in this. See, so.
I visited 2 friends last night. They can tend to be quite negative and not really into such, so I have this, but I just played them your video, the testimony from Australia. They're like, oh, you can explain it to us. And I'm like, no, 3 minutes. This explains it a lot better than I can. And I played and I'm like, and hey, they're talking in code, but you'll work out what they actually are really meaning. That can apply.
The interview with the doctor.
No, the lady in hospice.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant. That was such a good, and they were like,
I'm getting too hot.
they were like, they went from, she was telling us about to really interested.
Third
And
party.
then I invited them to the Disruptive Wellness Group.
Beautiful. Cheryl's talking about is such a key, guys. Such a huge key. Don't get talked into explaining anything. Just point to the testimonials and
Well, then they wanted me to explain after. So then their interest was piqued by the.
and you guys have calls regularly for prospects.
Yes.
to jump
Yeah,
on.
that's one thing we'll probably touch on in a little bit, is about the system that's in place for you guys that we created, so that when someone goes, oh, but I want you to give me a little bit more, they say, I don't know, I want to know more about the science or whatever, or how it works.
Yeah.
Tag.
The global page, that really simple, very professional.
Tag.
That's the secondary, right?
Yeah,
Disruptive
and
wellness
that's
first,
what-
and then if they're showing a little bit more, then bang into that group. And then third would be the hub once they're.
That's the system.
Yeah.
So so the information is there for you to use. So it's everything Stephen is saying, Tamara is saying around, you don't need to explain yourself. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I sell, I'm a distributor. So I let the information do the talking. And then you go, well, you can do that.
So an excellent point is this, we're going to pay you to do network marketing. We're not paying you to be a health expert, right? We're not paying you to have clinical conversations with people. And we're not paying you to convince people, because we're not in the convincing business.
Or
Right.
paying you to point people in the right direction.
Or share the
So,
good news.
Point
there's
people which
Plenty of
they can get.
people who are super annoyed with me because I never really answer their questions. But, but I'm laughing all the way to the bank, so there you go. And I'm doing you a favor because I'm modeling to my downline how
Yeah.
to do it.
Duplication.
Okay.
Another group where the guy set up, it's just,
So one of
we
the
got time for that.
biggest understand, as you're recruiting someone, you are also training them,
Yeah.
right? As you're recruiting someone, you're also training them. Super important.